if I were to sort of summarize some of the key thoughts we've been talking about, it's like you've got to forget about what the AI is capable of for a moment and just think about some of the fundamentals that go
Mhm.
into making these things successful, right? Like I've always contended that your data and analytics maturity in itself is a huge, um, benefit and competitive advantage when you start to build with AI or, just pull your data and some of your proprietary information into an AI solution that you may have procured from a solution provider. But I mean, that's the foundation for anything that any output you're going to get from that AI. If you don't trust the data and some of the core components of that, then all bets are off. And that is especially true for decision making when it comes to AI solutions in the talent space, right? So certainly looking at DEI. I mean, we can debate whether DEI is properly supported. We can talk about how corporations are reacting these days to DEI initiatives, but the fundamental principle of fairness and impartiality and bias mitigation all goes back to the data. And so you've
Yeah.
got to look at that before you
How
start
good, how,
blaming the AI
yeah.
as
So how good will you do that or not? And by the way, like on the DEI and like the idea of like responsible AI. One thing that came to mind before we start recording all that is uh, people tend to think about responsible AI as how do we use AI responsibly? But I think there's another way of also of looking at that is what is our responsibility in actually deploying AI and in the topic of DI, or in the topic of just simply having uh, you know, and I'm just like the use case will be hiring or maybe internal mobility is how AI can actually help an organization to just not do the job of recruiters slightly faster, but really like get to every candidate and try to figure out like deeply how everyone is a fit, but will work over time and what they can bring and blah blah blah. Not just like giving a scoring on how the candidate will be good or not, but it's kind of like giving more chance than what a human will give you. Um, nowadays, like if you look at a lot of job posting, talent intelligence or workforce planning, well, you have to have like so many years of talent intelligence planning. I mean, you have to come from there. So people like you and I might not have the same chances, and still we work in there and like to have pretty successful. So how comes? Well, if an AI could actually ask me more questions, that hey, read that about your resume or whatever your things, your online profile. Tell me more about it, and I can from there, like, and asking me more questions. Just be having the patience that a human might not have as candidates. I will probably really appreciate that. I will kind of like give myself a chance to defend myself without so much pressure and actually talking to a system that I will actually like try to really make a balance between like who I am, where I'm coming from, and not or not, and kind of get out of the usual standard of like that's what we're looking for. No, that's not. You're not looking for. Do you want someone who actually has been doing exactly the same for 20 years, or someone who actually has been moving a lot for 20 years? If the role is will potentially be exposed to a lot of changes, some pretty brutal, you want someone who's been actually exploding itself to something pretty brutal. And it's, there's not one good solution to that, but I think, back to the topic, like uh, I think we all have a responsibility to use AI in those moments and to use AI well, to use AI to its full potential. It's sure. It's about like, do we have the right data? Do we build the right algorithm so we don't put people out? But I said yes. And what about we will also make sure that we put everyone in. And that's the responsibility I think we all have when it comes to AI. It's not about like shying away from it. Developers have been using Sandbox for a while. Well, just take a sample of your data, do that on the side, test it, track it, it's fine. It's not public. It's there. It's not about hiring someone. It's just about to see like, does it work? Can we be better? Can we hire? And it's not about hiring the best people. It's about hiring the right people. I think HR has a lot into hiring or using the right people. HR has a lot into like we want the best of people. We want no, you don't want the best. You want the right. The best doesn't exist. The right do exist.
Yeah. No, there's so many good nuggets in all of that. I think you called out a couple things. First of all, I think responsibility. You've got to be responsible by design, right? And that's
Yeah.
starts with the whoever's you know building and developing this. It's not just the solution providers anymore, because like we were talking about, anyone can now build a GPT or an agent, and so now everyone sort of takes on
It would see
some
easier
of
to
that
say it than to
responsibility.
do. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the other is, just even going back to your point about, the role as it's defined. We spend so much time worrying about, you know, matching, job descriptions to CVs, and there are so many problems. I mean, we could spend a whole other hour talking about why that's such a bad idea. Not just because now it's an AI generated JD versus an AI generated resume, but um, but the fact that that role is going to invariably change in a pretty short amount of time, and you need to understand whether that person has the ability to learn and grow and adapt as the role changes. And that role could change for a variety of reasons. First of all, that one bullet point that says other duties as assigned could easily blow up and take up a significant double-digit percentage of the work. Or you see all these changes in your business model, in the markets that you go after, in the way that you do your manufacturing, and all of these other elements that go into the sort of variability of the role, which goes back to your very first point around the sort of agility and adaptability of uh, at every level, right, from an individual all the way to the organizational level.